I'm going to be doing a watercolor painting. I have my watercolor paper out here. My mat is around it. I have a sketch on here of a flower with a vase. There's one laying on the table. And today I'm using a little travel kit. You can pick these up at your art supply stores. They're little kits that have the little pan watercolors. You can also pick up the different tubes. I do have those with the different palette that I could use. I also have a carrying case for my different brushes. I'm going to be using 3 different types of brushes. A wide one, a nice little pointed one, and a little twiggy brush for detail work. I'm going to take the mat off. If you're not good at drawing, you can find a painting or a picture, sort of put it up on a projector or trace it, and then trace it onto your paper. But let's get started. And of course, I've got my little pan of water. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to kind of lightly wet my different pans of paint. Now I probably won't be using all the colors, but I do wet them all. And I can use this to mix color, or I do have a separate one if I need a bigger pan to do that. So I don't normally use the white, but if you want to, you certainly can. And then of course we do have the darker colors. I'm going to start basically with my pointed brush. It's got a nice little tip. So when I load that, I'm just going to load the tip, just like that. So it is wet with water, but as you can see, and if I run it out here, you can see this one half is loaded, the other half is not, though it will spread across with the water. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to start with one of my petals, and the point with the paint on is the outer edge of the petal coming in. Everything goes into the center, and I do have paper towels. I just wet my brush. I just cleaned it off. It's just got water on it now. I'm going to take it, come back, and drag that and spread the color. And this way, by doing that, it lightens the color. I'm going to touch the corner, and I'll get to my palette again, just barely touching, just getting a little bit of that red while it's still wet, and just doing that outer edge. And then it will, because it is still wet, it will flow in. If you get too much color, you can always wet the brush. You can come back in, and if you just pull a wet brush across, it will pick up some of the color. So there are different ways of working with watercolor. You can pick up a lot. It's never going to come completely white again because the colors are staining, but you can pick up air, or you can even go in, and I'm going to pick up a little more color on the corner, and you can see how I can kind of wiggle a little more darker in and even get darker. I can even go and pick a touch of yellow if I want to add a little right through the center. Clean my brush. I can come in and just kind of touch and let that water cause it to flow. So now I've got a two-tone flower. Basically, that's how we're going to do it. If you get too much color, you can always come in, take your paper towel, and even pick some up. So those are the method we're going to be using to paint this flower, this floral painting. So I'm going to wet my brush again. Since we've already started with the reds on it and keeping it more or less pale to the pinks, I'm going to pick up some more. We're going to come in. And like I said, I'm using just the corner of the brush, and you can keep picking up more paint to see how dark you want it. And I'm going to bring that in and Then I'm going to wet the brush, clean it, just tap a little bit on here, and then sort of drag that water through. That way you get the different variations of color. This one I'm going to pick up quite a bit. I want this a little bit darker. It's kind of like the edge of it. And I'm even going to pick up just a touch of the blue, very little blue. I'll pick up a little bit more and kind of right along the edge. Let me clean that off. And go back to my reds. And it just gives it a slight purplish color where it looks like it might have some shadow on it. Back to my reds. This time I'm picking up the full brush of paint. And from here, and I'm just going to pull that out like that. And I've got a very dark petal. I'm going to fill the paint. This time I'm going to pick up just a slight bit of orange with that, just to vary the color slightly. And you can see it's almost like a scarlet. And you can see how bold you can get with some of these paints too. So just because it's watercolor doesn't mean you can't get it bold. I'm going to pick up, clean some of that, and with a clean brush, come in, maybe pick up a little bit of that color, give it a little bit, and then right in here, I'm gonna kind of pull it in, pick up a little bit, lighten it up a little bit. So you can change the colors, you can change, you know, vary the intensity. I like that intensity, so I think I'm going to come back in. Now be careful when you go back in over an area that's wet. You want it so you can touch it and it's not swimming with water. If it's too wet, it has a tendency to sort of separate and can give you some odd colorations. And then here I'm going to pick up a little bit of that orange, and I'm going to give it a little vein coming down through the center. And I think I'll do that over here with that little bit of that orange. I like that brightness of it. So you've got that. If you don't like it that harsh, just go over it with a little bit of water and a clean brush, and you can lift a little bit of that color off and get rid of some of the lines. All right. So let's go on. We've got pretty much that flower done. Let's start working on some of the other ones. I think I'm gonna, before I do that, I'm gonna pick up a slight bit of green and a little bit of the yellow. And right under here, I'm just gonna kind of, while that's still wet, put a little bit of that green coming down. And the reason I did that now is because as it's wet, I don't want it real wet because it'll just bleed into it, but I wanted a little bit of it touching that so that it melds together. It doesn't look like it's separate. I'm going to take some yellow right in the center, just straight yellow, and kind of pull that center in. All right. You decide what color you want your flowers and theme here. And don't forget, this is in a vase. It's going to have water in it, so you're going to have a different, slightly different look to that. All right, so let's go in. I think I'm going to do an orange. Pick up my color. And right here, I want it real deep right in here so it comes in. And then I'm gonna pick up some water in here, and I'm not touching, I'm leaving a little white area where There's a separation. You can see where I touched this, how it's bleeding in, and that's fine, that doesn't hurt. But I've left just a slight little area back in, and then this time I'm gonna get the orange, but I'm touching the tip with the red. So it's a little brighter right there, and then the back side of the brush, kind of clean some of that color off, and then finish pulling it down. And I'm gonna let it kind of bleed down. Back to my oranges. I'm gonna take in a little, right on that curve there. I keep going back to my water to clean my brush off. And now I'm gonna give it a little, almost like a little comma. All right. And pull that back into my water, just plain water. There's still a little color in the brush. Pull those back. I'm going to touch a slight bit of red on the tip, along with the orange. A little more of that red, just on the tip. Kind of pull that back a little bit, clean the water, and with a cleaner brush, pull that back so it lightens as it goes back. I'm gonna go back to a little bit of the red right here, that little area there. Pick up some more red. Just kind of deepen in that V coming out. I want everything to look like, since this looks like it's going in, I want it a little darker. Pick up a little more of that red right there in that V. So it looks like it's sort of a deeper color going in. If you want pink, since we don't have pink on our palette, you just use the red and lots of water with it. And the more water you put in it, the more towards pink it'll go. This one, and I'm doing like every other layer because I don't want them touching and running together. This is sort of like maybe a carnation, and we'll come back in. Once that dries, when we come back in with another layer, that color will be a deeper color, so you'll get the variations. All right, I think maybe up here we'll use yellow. And we can do maybe a yellow carnation. And we're doing the same thing. It's more hit and miss. All right. We have another one here. You decide what color you want it. I think I'm gonna do a deeper red. I like that red. That red is nice and bright. Now I want it deeper so it separates it from this one. You can see how deep that color can get. And there's another one. Washing the brush, tapping it off on my paper towel, and then dragging some of that in towards the center. So you want the variation in color. You can see this one is darker. This one is dark on this edge, but it's lighter on this one, so it does cause a separation. Back to my dark reds. Give it a nice little point there. Bring that in, maybe right down the center. Clean some of the off of there. And Just add some water and let that pull back to my reds down here. And this is kind of got a little frill on it. And it's going towards the center. While I'm at it, I think I'll do outline on this one. I'm gonna clean that brush. I'm gonna pull that in. Same thing here. And so you've got a variation of color. You can go back in and even take a little bit of that red, just kind of touch it to the center. You can almost just dot, dot, dot. Looks like maybe there's something in the center there. I like that, that looks good. If you don't like this edge, you could always come back in. Maybe I'm gonna extend this one, make this, turn that into part of this petal. And that'll overlap this one. So you can change a few things as you go along. Just because you drew it on one way doesn't mean you have to stay with that. So then we got another petal over here. You got to decide, is that part of this petal? Is it part of that one? If it's part of this one, I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange with it. And just, I wanted a slight variation in color so that it doesn't look like it's part of this one here. And pull that in. I'm going to pick up just a little bit of the orange. All right, so now we've got that one. So we've got quite a few established. There's something coming out here. Let's go in. Oh, let's see. Got all these colors. How about we'll make some yellow and orange. We'll give it even more towards the orange color. In fact, pick up more yellow there. Let's go back. So I'm gonna bring that out and a little tip there. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna pick up some green right along here. I'm actually gonna turn that into a leaf. Okay, clean my brush. And it's got some of the colors from up here. We have one more flower down here. We might as well do that, and then we'll come back. Hopefully these, yeah, they're pretty dry. We'll come back and work with those. All right, take a look. Is that a bright red one? Is that a bright orange one? I think I'm gonna mix the orange and the red. I like that color, but this time we're gonna be more bold with it. And if you like purples, then make your flowers purple. Clean that brush a little bit. Pull those in towards the center. This is a clean brush. Back to my colors. And I'm going a little faster this time. Just adding the water. Let the paint do what it wants. Don't try to control it. Put a little bit of color in there and let it do what it wants. Add some water, and that's the beauty of watercolors. And then I'm going to take some yellow right in the center. right. Now you can go back into some of these and emphasize them. I'm gonna go back to this one. Take some of the red, add the water to it. Not gonna go quite as light with it, but I'm still keeping it more towards the pink side. And then I'm coming back in. And I'm not trying to cover up all the white area. If a little bit of the white shows through, that's fine. I'm gonna pick up just straight red towards the center. As it gets in here, it's kind of brighter. Back to my lighter colors. Bring that out. All right. Now for the yellow one, I'm gonna go more deeper yellow by adding just a touch of the orange to it. I don't want it orange, but I do want it deeper yellow. So you can see. And then I'm leaving a lot of white here, and I'm not trying to cover up all the yellow. I do want that yellow in there. Right along the edge there. I'm gonna try to keep it as much as possible off of this flower, but you touch a little bit of it, it's not gonna hurt it. Okay, let me pick up some more color, start up the top. And maybe in here. All right. I'm gonna go in with some of my blues. I'm gonna really, really water it down. Let me go a little deeper, I think, almost towards the purplish blue. I'm really gonna keep it watered down. I'm gonna kind of do that, add some water back into that color. And I'm not trying to put a lot of color in there. It's kind of a grayish blue, but I want it to look like there is some water there. And then I'm just kind of skimming across a little sideways here. All right. I do want to establish that there is a line there. And across here. And you can see I even left a little white in here, because you will get some reflection light off of the glass. Now I normally don't use white, but we do have white here. Just kind of tapping across. All right, and you could have mixed some of that white with the red. The problem with that is it starts becoming more opaque, and I want it a nice free feel to this. And you can see if this is too bold, how I can come in and scrub it a little bit, and it lightens it up. Okay, let's start in on some of my greenery here. I've got green, mixing it with some of the yellows. And just very pale lines here. I'm gonna pick up a little more green in that so that there's two types of shades of it. I don't want it all just bland one color. All right, so we got some stems. I'm gonna go back into the greens, add a little more of that to my yellows here. And then I'm gonna add just a tab of blue, not much, just cool it, and then because I want two, then I'm going to clean my brush and just kind of pull the edge out. I can always go in and deepen any of these colors if I want. I'm going to touch the blue, go into the greens, and then down here, now be careful coming down in here. You can see how it's still pretty wet. I'm only going to give it a little bit of very lightly. And I want it to spread a little bit, but I don't want it just exploding everywhere. In fact, I can even go in and pick a little bit of that up right along the edge there. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of that, and as it hits the water, it almost looks crooked. The water bends the light. If you have an actual vase of flowers set up, you could see how the different ways that water affects the different colors. I'm going to take, let's see, a little of the purple color and maybe, a touch of the browns. And I'm going to take my big brush, kind of come across. Just kind of wetting this area. I'm not getting real wet. I'm going to kind of sneak in around some of these petals. And right about here, I think I'm going to cut it off. And the same thing on the other side. Get in there. And let's go see what color I want. So we were going to do a little of the browns. Let me add just a little purple to that, just to darken that color a little bit. And we're going to kind of start down here, back to my browns, a little more browns as I come up. I don't want a lot of color, but I do want some color up here. I don't want it to just look like this cup is just floating out with nothing around it. All right, I know it looks kind of pinkish, and that's fine. You can always go in and add more color once it dries, if you like it. I'm going to take a little bit of the blues, add lots of water to it, and then that's going to kind of just come down. And it doesn't have to be uniform, it can just pick up more of it. Get a little more of the blues. This had lots of water. And I just want to kind of look like maybe there's, pick up a little bit of that heavy. And you can even lift up your paper and let it flow so that it moves around. There. I usually have my paper taped down because it does, as you can see, has a tendency to kind of buckle on you. And so that kind of keeps it kind of straight from doing that. All right, I'm gonna take my Twiggy brush, same blue that I used for the background. I'm gonna come in, oops, let me get more water on it. I'm gonna sneak some of that blue in here, because you will see some of it coming through the background. Where's the blue? I need more blue here. And I'm going to take a little deeper blue, same blue, just deepening the color. And you're going to see the back side of that cup. And come around, and there's the front rim. And I'm going to actually leave the actual drawing there to show that cup. Get some more of the blues. And here, gonna kind of, and then just kind of outlining it with a little bit of the blues. I'm going to go back with my bigger pointed brush, pick up some of that blues, because there will be some shadow under here. Figure out where the light's coming from, and since it seems to be lighter on this side. All right, now that I got that, I'm going to go in, back to my reds. Now I'm going to come in. Now I'm going to start picking out different areas to highlight. I want to get some of these bolder. And now I'm just going to be more free about how I'm putting it in. I'm going to pick up just a touch of that purple right in the center. Touch, 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 maybe a little more. I'm going to go into the oranges. You can see how I'm going over it. You can lighten or darken that. I'm going to pick up some greens and touch in the center here. Maybe. Back to my orange, and this time picking up yellow with it. At that. Just some of these edges. I like that one pretty much. Get that little comma back in there. And then just the tip with some of the reds right in here. And you can see where I dropped some water. Just pick it up. No big deal. And you can kind of, from the center, pull out. And that looks like you're looking into it. I like the yellow one. I'm going to leave that alone. But I think I'm going to deepen the pink one. Right, and especially right towards the center. Just the straight red. And I'm just kind of working my way out. And I'm just touching, giving a little pull. And sometimes it's, as I get out, I'm going to go more of a curve. Up top, I'm just pulling straight, and everything's sort of pulled towards the center. Over here, it's more of a curve, and then all of a sudden, I'm going to start on the outside, pull some in. Because the cup is going to be sort of like that, but you're going to have a few sticking out. at some flowers, or look at some paintings or pictures and study them. All right, I like that. Somewhere there's a stem here, and it's kind of curved in there. Sort of dripping over, maybe a leaf or something. And this leaf, it's gonna be bolder on the one side. And I'm even gonna take this and just sort of add some water so it flows out a little bit. Play with your colors. This one. And there's the stem going in. Some of these, give it a little bolder look. I'm gonna come back up. I'm gonna add a little more green right on the edges. And I'm even gonna make the edges sort of ruffled. Take my little one here. And you can even take some of your green, and you can even pull some, oh, I don't know what it is, but just little curly cues coming out of here. Maybe, oh, maybe out here, you got one coming out. And let's bring that up. And let's see, I'm trying to get my hand out of the light. And it's just little curly cues, something coming out. If it gets too bold, pick some of the color up with that. You can go in, even pick up some of the yellows, mix with the greens. And a little more green in that. So there's different things you can do. Now we gotta do work here. I'm gonna go back into my greens. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of yellows with it, and come in. And they have a tendency to bend with the light when you hit the water. And in the water, they kind of get a little distorted. Not much, but just enough. And down here, I'm gonna pick up just a little bit of my purples. Not much. I'm gonna kind of add a little shadow underneath that glass. And I'm gonna pick up some of the reds, and maybe a few little petals from here fell off and are laying down here. I go back to my blues. Gotta still add a little bit of purple in there, more shadow side. So there's different things you can do with that. I'm gonna take a little bit of my yellow greens. Maybe there's some leaves back in here that are just flowing out. Just sort of putting some color in back there. I'm gonna touch a little bit of reds in there. You get some reflected light in there. You can even touch a little bit in there. If you get too much, just dab it off and pull it out. I think we're gonna do maybe one more leaf here. I like where this is, what it looks like. We're gonna do a leaf here. Maybe. Gonna pull that through. I think we're doing pretty good. Let's see. I think I'm gonna go in with a little deeper blues. And I'm going to tint that glass. And I'm leaving a little lighter right inside here. And then I'm going to take a clean one, just kind of come down. And I'm going to go in with a deeper blue. That surface of the water. All right, stand back, take a look at your painting. Does it need anything else? Take your mat, hold it over. Pretty bare over here, maybe. I need a little more of that blue for background. Get a little more of the blues. Stand up, step away from your painting. Take a look at it. And watercolors do dry lighter. If you're using acrylics, they usually dry darker. Oil paints usually will dry the color you put on. So don't be afraid to go back in. Add a little more color if you need it. Yeah, I think I like that a little better. It gives it a little more background blue. And like I said, if you got something you don't like, if you think it's too dark, take a wet brush. You can go in. Look how much color I can pick up off of there. I can pick up quite a bit. So I can change things. Don't be afraid to try to change a few things there. So I think we've got a finished painting. Generally, with watercolors, I'll either sign it with an ink pen or a pencil. So I think I'm ready to sign this one. And just have fun, play with it. It's surprising what you can do with some of the watercolors and what you can't do. So, but play with it. Have a good time. Hope you enjoyed this one.